There are moments in life when you realize you are completely alone in this world. For me, that moment came on November 15th in a Manhattan law office, sitting in a leather chair that cost more than my monthly rent, listening to words that would shatter what remained of my heart. And to my granddaughter, Sarah Rodriguez, the lawyer's voice echoed through the mahogany-paneled office. I leave nothing. Her choices have led her down a path I cannot support, and I will not reward failure with inheritance. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt my 7-year-old daughter Sophie's small hand slip into mine, her fingers trembling as she squeezed tighter. She didn't understand the words, but she could feel my pain radiating through the room like heat from a furnace. Across the massive oak table sat what remained of my family. My brother Marcus, 35 years old and sharp as a blade in his $3,000 suit, his eyes cold as winter steel. Beside him, my sister Diana, 38 and dripping in jewelry that sparkled like captured starlight, her smile triumphant and cruel. They had just inherited millions. Marcus received the Hamptons estate worth $2.3 million. Diana got the art collection and Brooklyn brownstone valued at $3.7 million. Even distant relatives were acknowledged, given something, recognized as existing, and I got nothing. I was 32 years old, though exhaustion had carved lines around my eyes that made me look older. My hands bore the calluses of years cleaning offices and stocking shelves. I worked 3 jobs to keep Sophie fed and clothed: breakfast shift at Romano's Diner, afternoon cleaning downtown buildings, evening stocking shelves at the 24-hour supermarket. I slept 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Sophie's father had left us 3 years ago without so much as a goodbye note. Well, that's settled then, Marcus said, leaning back with casual arrogance. Sarah, if you need help, maybe a loan to get through the month, we can discuss terms. The condescension was thick as honey and twice as bitter. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and took Sophie's hand. We don't need anything from you. We never have. It wasn't true, but it felt good to say. As we reached the elevator, everything changed. Miss Rodriguez, wait, please. A woman in her 50s hurried toward us, her heels clicking against marble. I'm Patricia Walsh. I represent another estate that concerns you. She handed me an envelope of cream-colored paper with my name written in elegant script. This is from Evelyn Margaret Thorne. She passed away 6 weeks ago and left specific instructions that this be delivered after your grandmother's will was read. The name floated somewhere in childhood memory. Evelyn Thorne, grandmother's older sister, though they'd stopped speaking decades before I was born. I opened the letter carefully. The handwriting was shaky but determined, the words of someone who knew they were running out of time. My dearest Sarah, it began, we met only once when you were 8 years old. You probably don't remember me. I was your grandmother's older sister, though we stopped speaking 70 years ago. I followed your life from a distance through Christmas cards your mother sent before she passed, through newspaper clippings and photographs that found their way to me. I know what your family did to you today. I know because they did the same to me. I married the wrong man according to them and was erased for it. But I built something beautiful anyway. The mansion at 417 Holloway Ridge Road in Silver Creek, New Hampshire, is yours. There's something else you need to know, something your grandmother never told you about our family. You'll understand when you find what I've left for you. Not because you're perfect, but because you survived. Just know that someone saw you, Sarah. Someone knew you were worth more than they said you were. I read it twice, feeling something stir in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Silver Creek was 200 miles north. The weather reports called for the worst blizzard in 50 years, but something in Evelyn's letter lit a fire that wouldn't be extinguished. For the first time in years, I felt hope. That night, I packed everything we owned that mattered, withdrew our last $300, and told Sophie we were going on an adventure. Are we going to live there? She asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit Mr. Whiskers. Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe we are. We left at midnight, hoping to beat the storm. The highway was already empty, most people smart enough to stay home. The first snowflakes started falling around 2 a.m., fat and lazy, then thick and fast, turning the world into an impenetrable wall of white. By 3 a.m., I could barely see 10 feet ahead. The car fought against wind that howled like a living thing, and I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Sophie slept in the back seat, Mr. Whiskers tucked under her chin, trusting that Mommy would get them there safely. At mile marker 42, the car started to slide on hidden ice. I turned into the skid the way my father had taught me years ago, back when he was still alive, back when family meant protection instead of rejection. The car straightened, and I breathed again. Please, I whispered to whatever was listening. Please, just let us make it. The exit for Silver Creek appeared through the storm like a gift from heaven. The GPS led us onto smaller roads, then dirt roads, then what might have been a private drive buried under 3 feet of snow. And then I saw it. The mansion rose from the darkness like something from another century. Even buried in snow, even half hidden by the blizzard, it was magnificent. 3 stories of weathered stone and timber with Gothic turrets and wraparound balconies that spoke of wealth built to last generations. I pulled as close as I could and killed the engine. Sophie, I said softly, reaching back to shake my daughter awake. We're here. The key Patricia had given me fit perfectly in the massive oak door. It swung open with a groan that echoed through the entrance hall, and we stumbled inside, snow following us in a rush of frigid air. The mansion took my breath away. A grand staircase swept upward into shadow, its mahogany banister carved with intricate designs. Crystal chandeliers hung from 20-foot ceilings like frozen fireworks. The marble floors stretched beneath furniture covered in white dust sheets, creating an almost ghostly atmosphere. It was freezing inside, maybe colder than outside, but the grandeur was undeniable. Is this really ours? Sophie whispered, her voice echoing in the vast space. Yeah, baby, it really is. We explored by the light of my phone's flashlight, moving through rooms that felt like pages in a storybook. A library with thousands of leather-bound volumes stretching from floor to ceiling. A dining room with a table that could seat 20 guests. A kitchen with vintage appliances from the 1950s, and cabinets stocked with canned goods, dried pasta, and rice. Evelyn had prepared for someone to come. On the second floor, I chose the smallest bedroom for us. A corner room with a 4-poster bed and tall windows that looked out over snow-covered grounds. I piled every blanket I could find onto the bed, and we crawled underneath, fully clothed, holding each other for warmth. Tell me a story, Sophie murmured, already half asleep. Once upon a time, there was a girl who thought she had nothing, but then she discovered she had everything that mattered. She had courage and love and a daughter who made her want to be brave. Sophie's breathing evened out, but sleep wouldn't come for me. As I lay there listening to the storm rage outside, I heard something that made every nerve in my body go cold. Footsteps on the floor below, soft and deliberate, like someone walking through the rooms we just explored. I slipped from bed and grabbed my phone. The battery was down to 12%, and I'd forgotten to bring a charger in my haste to escape. I tiptoed to the door and eased it open. The hallway stretched in both directions. Swallowed by darkness, my phone's weak light could barely penetrate. Another creak echoed from somewhere below, and my heart began to race. This was my house now. Whatever was down there, whoever was down there, I had a right to know. I moved down the hallway slowly, then descended the staircase, each step groaning under my weight despite my efforts at silence. The entrance hall opened before me, painted silver by moonlight streaming through tall windows. Nothing moved, but there in the beam of my flashlight, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Fresh footprints in the dust, larger than mine and Sophie's, leading from the front door toward the library. Hello? My voice came out smaller than intended, swallowed by the enormous space. No answer, just the howl of wind outside. I followed the prince to the library. The door stood ajar, though I was certain we'd closed it. Inside, the smell of old leather and aged paper filled my nostrils, and there, impossibly, on the small table beside a wingback chair, lay an open leather-bound journal. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run back upstairs. The journal was filled with Evelyn's handwriting, elegant script that matched the letter. The open page was dated just 5 months ago. "I know my time is short," she'd written. "The doctors give me weeks, maybe days, but I have no regrets. This house has been my sanctuary against a world that tried to break me, and now it will be hers. Sarah doesn't know it yet, but she's stronger than anyone in that poisonous family ever gave her credit for. She'll find this journal when she's ready. She'll find everything when she's ready." Tears blurred my vision. Here was proof that I had been thought of, planned for, chosen deliberately by someone who understood. A whisper seemed to drift through the room, so faint I almost missed it. "Welcome home." I spun around, heart hammering. "Who's there?" Only silence answered, heavy and expectant. I backed toward the door, phone clutched like a weapon, and ran back upstairs. I locked our bedroom door, shoved a chair under the handle, and lay awake until dawn, listening to every sound the old house made. Morning light transformed everything. The mansion that had seemed haunting in darkness became magical in daylight. Sophie and I explored with wonder, discovering room after room of treasures. Behind a full-length mirror in Evelyn's bedroom, Sophie found a gap that suggested a hidden door. "Mommy, look," she said, pressing against the mirror's edge. With a soft click, it swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. We followed it upward, using my nearly dead phone for light, until it opened into the most beautiful room I'd ever seen. An artist's studio filled with natural light from skylights overhead. Canvases lined the walls, paintings in various stages of completion. Still lifes, landscapes, portraits, all rendered with skill that spoke of decades of practice. In the center, on a large easel, stood an unfinished painting of the mansion itself, captured in summer glory with flowers blooming and sunshine turning everything golden. But it was the figure in one of the upper windows that made me gasp. A woman holding a child's hand, both painted with such precise detail that there could be no mistake. The woman looked exactly like me. The child looked exactly like Sophie. "She painted us," I whispered, staring at the canvas. "But how? She died before we came here." On a small table, I found sketchbooks documenting years of work, and on the last page of one, a note in Evelyn's careful script. "For Sarah, when you find this place, this house gave me freedom. I hope it gives you the same. Look for the numbers where dreams were sworn." We found stairs to the third floor, hidden behind what looked like a linen closet. They led to servants' quarters from the mansion's grander days. Most rooms held storage, but at the very end of the hall, behind a door that resisted until I put my full weight against it, we discovered something extraordinary. The room ran the full width of the house, converted into a climate-controlled vault. Filing cabinets lined one wall, labeled with decades from 1940 to 2020. Glass display cases held jewelry, rare coins, and what looked like stock certificates. And dominating the center of the room stood a massive safe built into the wall, its green paint and brass fixtures gleaming despite years of dust. Above a small desk, a framed poem hung on the wall. In 27, this house was born. Where 43 acres, dreams were sworn. In 48, two hearts combined. In 98, freedom I did find. Numbers. She was giving me the combination, but not in chronological order, in order of what mattered most to Evelyn's heart. I went to the filing cabinets and found the documents that explained each line. The house built in 1927, the property spanning 43 acres, her marriage in 1948, and in 1998, a divorce decree ending 50 years of marriage. Freedom at last. I approached the massive safe with shaking hands. 43, 27, 98, 48. Each number clicked into place like pieces of destiny falling together. The final click echoed through the room, and the heavy door swung open with surprising ease. Fluorescent lights flickered on automatically, revealing Evelyn's hidden treasure. Bearer bonds in $100,000 denominations, bound in neat stacks. Stock certificates for companies I recognized even with my limited knowledge. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all purchased decades ago when they were worth almost nothing. Glass cases mounted on the walls held small paintings that even I could identify as masterpieces. Property deeds to houses in 3 states, rare coins that gleamed like captured sunlight, and on a pedestal in the center, a leather box containing a handwritten inventory in Evelyn's precise script. Total assets as of June 2024, I read aloud, my voice barely a whisper. Bearer bonds, $87 million. Stock certificates, $112 million. Real estate holdings, $43 million. Art collection, $18 million. Rare coins and precious metals, $15 million. Total estimated value, $265 million. I sank to the floor, overwhelmed by numbers too large to comprehend. More money than existed in my wildest dreams. More money than my family had denied me. Enough to ensure Sophie's future and help countless others. But even as I sat there in shock, the sound of approaching vehicles made me freeze. Through the dormer window, I saw a black SUV making its way up the snow-covered drive, expensive and out of place in this rural setting. Marcus, Diana, and 2 men in dark suits burst into the vault room as I instinctively moved to shield Sophie. "Well, well," Marcus said, his voice dripping false concern. "Look what we found. Our poor struggling sister hiding out in a mansion. How the mighty have fallen and risen again." "Get out," I said, standing straighter. "This is my house. You're trespassing." Diana laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "Your house? We're family, darling. What's yours is ours. Isn't that what family does?" The lead lawyer stepped forward, briefcase in hand. "Miss Rodriguez, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Mrs. Thorne's will is being contested. Your relationship to the deceased is questionable, and until the matter is settled in court, all assets must be frozen." "Patricia Walsh has been reported to the state bar," Marcus added with cold satisfaction. "Conflict of interest, improper handling of estate assets. Her legal license is under review." They'd planned this, used their connections to tear apart what Evelyn had carefully built. "We're prepared to be generous," Diana said, pulling out papers. "Sign over your rights to the property, and we'll give you $50,000, more than you've ever had." "And if I refuse?" The lawyer smiled without warmth. "Then we'll tie this up in court for years. You'll spend whatever money you have fighting a battle you cannot win. Why not take the sensible path?" I looked at Sophie, small and frightened behind me, then at the vault full of Evelyn's life work. Something steel hard formed in my chest. "No," I said clearly. "Excuse me?" Diana stepped forward, her mask slipping to reveal the ugly person beneath. "I said no. This house is mine. Whatever's in it is mine. Evelyn left it to me because she understood what you never will. You can't have it." Marcus's expression darkened. "You're making a terrible mistake." "Maybe, but it's mine to make. Now get out of my house." They left with threats of legal action, but I stood my ground. That night, as Sophie slept, I read through Evelyn's journals by candlelight, piecing together the story of a remarkable woman who'd built an empire from exile. The next morning brought unexpected salvation. A convoy of pickup trucks arrived, and townspeople began getting out with supplies, food, and portable heaters. Miss Rodriguez, a woman about 60, approached with a warm smile. I'm Maggie Chen. I run the diner in Silver Creek. We heard you might need some help. Sheriff Tom Bradley, a uniformed man, introduced himself. Anyone gives you trouble on your property, you call me directly. He handed me his card with genuine concern in his eyes. An older gentleman with silver hair stepped forward. Jack Morrison, retired attorney. I knew Evelyn Thorne and witnessed her will. I'd be honored to represent you, no charge. Why? I asked, overwhelmed by kindness from strangers. Maggie's eyes grew soft. Evelyn Thorne helped this community for 40 years. When the mill closed in 2008, she bought the building and converted it to affordable housing. Anonymous scholarships, medical bills paid, equipment donated to the clinic. She never wanted credit, but we knew, and we don't forget that kind of goodness. As these generous people worked to make the mansion livable, getting the generator running and showing me the house's systems, I felt something I'd never experienced, the protection of a community. Jack called that evening with news. Emergency hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. Judge Marianne Fletcher presiding. She's tough but fair, and she doesn't appreciate outsiders trying to intimidate locals. The Silver Creek Courthouse was a century-old marble building that spoke of justice and permanence. I arrived early in my best dress, Sophie's small hand gripping mine. Marcus and Diana waited with 3 expensive lawyers, their expressions confident and condescending. Judge Fletcher entered, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She reviewed the paperwork with careful attention. This emergency motion claims Sarah Rodriguez unlawfully occupies property belonging to Evelyn Thorne's estate and poses risk to assets valued at over $200 million. Marcus's lead lawyer stood with practiced confidence. Your Honor, our clients are Mrs. Thorne's legitimate blood relatives. Miss Rodriguez's connection is tenuous at best. She never lived in this community, never maintained a relationship with the deceased, and suddenly appears claiming an enormous inheritance. This suggests fraud and undue influence. Jack rose slowly, his decades of experience evident in every measured movement. Your Honor, I personally witnessed Mrs. Thorne's will 6 months before her death. She was completely sound of mind and specifically intended to leave everything to Sarah Rodriguez, who is absolutely a blood relative. The will was properly executed under state law with 3 unrelated witnesses. The will's execution was compromise, the opposing counsel argued. Patricia Walsh had conflicts of interest. Ms. Walsh's ethics complaint is baseless retaliation, Jack replied calmly. Filed only after petitioners learned they weren't receiving what they felt entitled to. Judge Fletcher looked directly at me. Miss Rodriguez, did you know Mrs. Thorne before her death? I stood on unsteady legs. No, Your Honor. I met her once when I was 8, but I don't remember. She followed my life from a distance through letters my mother sent, and she chose to leave me her estate because she saw her own story in mine. She was disowned by her family for marrying the wrong man. So was I. She survived anyway and wanted to give me the chance to do the same. The courtroom fell silent except for the whisper of snow against tall windows. Judge Fletcher studied the documents again, then looked at Marcus and Diana with an expression that could freeze fire. I've lived in this county for 40 years and knew Evelyn Thorne personally. She was brilliant, independent, and determined. If she wanted to leave her estate to her great niece, instead of relatives who never visited, never called, and returned every letter unopened, that was entirely her right. The emergency motion was denied. We had won the first battle. Outside, Marcus grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. This isn't over. We'll appeal. We'll file again. We'll make your life hell until you sign over what's rightfully ours. Sheriff Bradley materialized beside us. Remove your hand or I'll arrest you for assault. Marcus released me. but his eyes promised future trouble. You can't hide behind small-town protection forever. I'm not hiding, I said, surprised by my own strength. I'm standing right here, and I'm not going anywhere. Over the next 3 months, as winter gave way to spring, I built a new life in Silver Creek while the legal battle raged. Sophie thrived in the small local school, making friends and excelling academically. The community continued supporting us with a generosity that still moved me to tears. I spent hours reading Evelyn's journals, discovering the incredible story of her rise from a secretary's salary to vast wealth through brilliant investing and an inheritance from her husband's automotive patent. But the journals also revealed profound loneliness until 2018, when she found a newspaper article about me working multiple jobs to support Sophie. Found her, she'd written, my sister's granddaughter fighting the same battles I once faced. She's everything I was before success gave me weapons to fight back. She deserves those weapons now. The final hearing was scheduled for March 15th. Marcus and Diana had hired one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms, spending what must have been millions trying to break Evelyn's will. But Jack Morrison was ready for them. The courtroom was packed with Silver Creek residents who'd come to support me. Jack presented overwhelming evidence: Evelyn's mental health evaluation, proper will execution, and documentation of Marcus and Diana's previous attempt in 1906 to have her declared incompetent for financial gain. But then Jack revealed something that changed everything. Your Honor, we've made an extraordinary discovery. He approached the bench with a manila folder. Mrs. Thorne left sealed documents to be opened only if her will was contested. These contain family genealogy research and DNA test results that reveal a long-hidden truth. He handed copies to opposing counsel and continued. Sarah Rodriguez isn't just Evelyn's great niece through her grandmother's family line. DNA evidence proves she's actually Evelyn's biological great-granddaughter through a family secret hidden for 70 years. The courtroom erupted. Marcus and Diana's faces went white as their lawyer frantically reviewed the documents. The genealogy shows that Evelyn's younger sister, Sarah's grandmother, had an affair that resulted in Sarah's mother being Evelyn's biological granddaughter, not her niece. This explains the mysterious connection Sarah felt to the house, Evelyn's prophetic painting, and her absolute certainty about leaving everything to Sarah. Judge Fletcher studied the DNA results and genealogy charts. These appear scientifically sound and properly authenticated. This doesn't change the will's validity, but it certainly explains Mrs. Thorne's strong connection to Miss Rodriguez and completely undermines arguments about inappropriate beneficiary selection. The ruling was swift and decisive. The contest is denied in its entirety. Mrs. Thorne's will stands as written and will be enforced without further interference. Marcus and Diana left in defeat, their expensive legal team trailing behind. They'd lost everything: money, reputation, and the fortune they'd felt entitled to claim. But the victory felt hollow until I understood what it truly meant. I wasn't just inheriting money. I was continuing a bloodline of strong women who refused to be broken by family rejection. 8 months later, Marcus and Diana returned, looking broken and desperate. Their legal fees had bankrupted them, their reputations were destroyed, and they were living with relatives. We came to apologize, Marcus said quietly in my office. We were wrong about everything. About you, about Evelyn, about what we deserved. I studied these people who tried to destroy me. They looked genuinely remorseful, worn down by consequences they'd never imagined. Is there anything we can do to make this right? Diana asked. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out job applications. The Evelyn Thorne Foundation is hiring regional coordinators, entry-level positions, $40,000 a year, working directly with families who've struggled like I did. Why would you offer this after everything we did? Because Evelyn believed everyone deserves a second chance, even people who probably don't deserve it. They took the applications and left. I later heard they worked quietly and humbly for 2 years, before moving away to start fresh elsewhere. With Evelyn's fortune, I established the foundation with $100 million endowment. Its mission was simple: help single mothers rebuild their lives through transitional housing, job training, childcare assistance, and microloans for small businesses. The mansion's ground floor became a community center, the library open to the public, filled daily with people discovering new worlds through Evelyn's thousands of books. The art studio became a creative space where local artists could work and teach. 2 years after the final court victory, I stood in what had been the vault room, now converted to a children's reading center where Sophie, now 10, led writing workshops with the same passion I'd seen in Evelyn's paintings. The massive safe stood open and empty, but on its back wall hung a framed copy of Evelyn's original inventory with my addition below. $265 million received and transformed. Used to help 1,147 families find stability, fund 412 scholarships, create 127 jobs, and build hope where none existed. Balance remaining, enough, more than enough. Thank you, Evelyn, for seeing me when my own family couldn't. That evening, as March snow began to fall, I walked through the mansion filled with light, laughter, and purpose. The house that had once been Evelyn's fortress against the world had become my bridge to it, connecting isolation to community, despair to hope, rejection to belonging. I thought about the exhausted woman who'd sat in that Manhattan law office, feeling worthless and alone. That woman was gone, transformed by the love of a stranger who'd seen worth where others saw only failure. Evelyn hadn't just given me money. She'd given me proof that I mattered, that my struggles had meaning, that survival itself was a form of success worth celebrating. And I'd multiply that gift, turning one woman's fortune into countless others' salvation. Standing at the library window watching snow transform the world into something clean and new, I smiled and whispered gratitude to the night sky. The woman who'd once felt invisible had become the architect of hope, and Sophie was already showing signs of carrying that legacy forward. The best inheritance isn't money, it's the courage to lift others when you've been lifted yourself. And in that truth, I'd found not just wealth, but purpose that would last far beyond any fortune. The story was only beginning.